Hello, my sweet chickens. This is your mother hen, Bins, ready to lay it down in this new video on the Shapez BEASTMAM series. This is video number 40, and we are still in our shenanigans chapter, chapter 6, where today I'd like to cover two more of those non-essential but still fun gimmicks that I put in this machine. More concretely, I want to talk about this combo right here to the left of the output lane on one hand, and then we will also go over this structure code shape on the other. Since we know that I am a sucker for giving names to stuff, and given the fact that these displays constitute the group of things we haven't spoken about yet in the horizontal row of displays on either side of the output lane, today's video will be called Completing the Row. And we're going to start with the leftmost display. This display shows the shapes that are currently moving about within the final stacker. And so it's a way to visually enjoy watching the shape gradually being assembled without having to leave the vicinity of the hub. When the final shape is ready, as you just saw, then the display next to it will light up green. And not only that, but the shapes that output to the leftmost display will initially be gray, but only when there is a match they will be displayed in their actual colors, unless they move through the final SLP. Yeah, I know, I said I went overboard, okay? Anyway, let's have a look at how that works, shall we? Again, severe spaghetti warning. So, the source signal starts right here, on the input belt for the 5th layer. As you can see, I put a belt reader there to draw that signal from. Now, in case you don't know, the shape output pin, in this case the top one, the shape output pin of a belt reader will always display the last item that passed through it, indefinitely. So even if there is nothing on the belt, the pin will retain the signal, and I don't want that on my displays. So I connected the belt reader output to itself with a transistor, and that way when there are no shapes currently on the belt, the signal is cut. And then I also added this zero converter thingy so that if there aren't any shapes on the belt, the signal will become a zero rather than a null. Then the signal moves upwards. And here we see another tiny belt reader module that will also output its shape on the wire if there is activity, but if there isn't, it will allow the previous signal to pass instead. And then, well, I repeat this process after every of the stacker units. All right, so we repeat, and that brings us here to this blue wire. Now, the blue wire is sent to two lanes on the right. One of those lanes is going to be painted gray and the other one isn't going to be. And the criterion that determines whether the gray or the colored signal gets to pass is a sustained match with the input signal. So we see this comparing unit right here connected to the main hub input signal. And then this row of transistors will make sure that the one only gets to pass if the match lasts for, let's count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 ticks. If we have a match, then this NOT gate will cut the gray output signal and the colored output signal gets to pass instead. And that's how this green wire will get a colored output only if there's a match with the output signal for at least 22 ticks, which at my frame rate translates to roughly a second, okay? Then the green wire runs into the following little setup. Let me zoom out. So the green wire, this one, it runs into this entire thing. Now, because of my personal tastes, and remember, we're in the shenanigans chapter, so I get to do whatever I want, but my personal taste is that I didn't want the output display to flicker too quickly. And anytime the shape on the display changes, I want it to be sustained for a minimal amount of time before the shape display can change, right? And that's what this thing does. If the shape changes, then a change detector will block the throughput through the transistor for 10 ticks. And because of this memory cell right here, the shape signal is in fact retained, but it doesn't change. Well, for at least 10 ticks, that is. And then that output signal runs into the final belt reader setup that's connected to the SLP's output lane. This means that if we have an SLP output, then that signal will take priority over all others. So now, here's the fun stuff. Watch this. Remember when we talked about the pre-stack SLPs? I explained how, when there's already some paint incoming from the top, but the shapes aren't there yet, then the paint is actually passed onwards instead of into the layer painter, right? Well, the paint actually moves into the post-stack SLP. And because of the way that's been set up, the paint will actually be used in the process that is flushing the stacker and switching over to the new shape. And because it's the signal coming out of the post-stack SLP that will take priority on the display, if it's there, that's how sometimes still a splash of color is added to the temporary shapes. I know, I'm not sure how I feel about it either. Anyway, that's the part of this first display done. Now the second display is super easy in comparison. For that, I just compare the signal of the left display, that's this one, I compare it to the input shape, and simply when there is a match, then I output a green color on the second display, right? Easy peasy. That's part one of this video. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this structure shape right here. Now, the structure shape is actually an obsolete product of something I thought I would need at some point, but it turned out I didn't. Still, I left it in the machine because, well, beautiful and impressive looking displays, what can I say? So the structure shape, as the name suggests, reflects the structure of the actual input shape, except it is always 100% guaranteed stable, even if the input shape has floating quadrants. And it works as follows. For the structure shape, I analyze which quadrants are in the shape and which aren't. Every actual real present quadrant is turned into a square quadrant, and every quadrant slot that isn't occupied in the input shape gets turned into a diamond quadrant instead. If the shape has fewer than 4 layers, then I put artificial layers below so that the structure code shape always has 4 layers. And that's actually it, except this structure shape can have 3 color patterns. At first, it will be gray. Then, while the decoder is decoding and the source shape itself is being built, it will turn white. And finally, when the decoder has found a solution, the structure shape will be painted in a few random colors that we find in the actual source shape as well. So how does it all work? Well, let's have a look at that. So the source signal comes in right here at the bottom, okay? And then it is branched into 2 paths. The left path is going to take care of the virtual painting, and the right one is going to handle the generation of the actual structure shape. Now, the latter is the easier part, believe it or not. All I do here is split the shape into layers and the layers into quadrants, and then for each one, I will analyze if the source shape has an input there. If yes, great, output a gray square quadrant. If no, also great, output a gray diamond quadrant. Then stack everything back together and voila, done. And as you can see, I make use of the multiplexers to achieve that. Now the paint, that's slightly trickier. As always with virtual layer painters, the first thing we need is a layer correction module. Then I run each layer into an analyzer line that will essentially capture the first color it finds. So If the top right quadrant is present in the layer, excellent, then we take its color and paint the entire layer with it. Otherwise, bottom right, bottom left, and top left in that order. The paint lines then run into a virtual layer painter, this one right here, together with the structure code shape as a side input. And voila, done. Additionally, I artificially delayed various signals so that on the eventual display, you get this effect of the shape gradually being built rather than plop, just an abrupt shape change. Oh, and then there's this final thing. The part that's in charge of painting the shape white while the decoder is doing its job, that is right here. And it's actually super simple. I take a copy of the smelt type code shape, because what else, and I connect a NOT gate to it. That way, as long as the machine is still searching, the input shape is painted white, and once we found a solution, the white paint side input of the Smart Virtual Painter is cut, thus allowing the shape to pass in its true colors, and then sometime later around the bend, the corresponding paint values make it into the virtual layer painter. And that's how that works, basically. Nothing earth-shattering, but who knows, maybe also here you picked up on some interesting setup that you would like to try. By all means, pause the video anywhere you like and copy any setup as you please. We don't have much left before we reach the end of the BEASTMAM series, but I hope that before that time, you do consider that subscribe button if you haven't. Leave a like, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and then you and I will meet again next time. I've been Bins, I hope you enjoyed, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, what?